Hey guys, how you going? That's good. So before I start my speech, I just want to say a few things and thank a few important people who have helped me along my journey to becoming who I am today. Because I feel like in our society, we like to think that we get to where we are all by ourselves, but that's not true. Whether it's a grandmother who stepped up when our parents were absent and supported us in a time of need, or a great-grandmother who prayed over you before you were even here, you're sowing the seeds of someone else's work. Whether it's a positive compliment from a teacher that you've cherished and held with you for most of your life. We didn't get here alone, but we like to think that we did. And I definitely didn't get here alone. I want to thank Dr. Max for supporting me and helping educate me through my journey. I would like to thank someone very, very important that most of you know if you're at this crazy event, and his name is Dr. Jack Cruz. Give him a clap. He is a remarkable man. He has taught me so much about myself, about life, about how to interact with people in different manners, and it's really helped me develop my character, so I appreciate him a lot. Lastly, I would like to thank somebody called Dr. Jalal Khan, and I think if you're here, you probably know who he is as well. Dr. Khan is a dentist. He's down in Sydney, and he's been my mentor for the last 3 years, and that man is actually incredible. If you haven't listened to his speeches, you know what I'm talking about. If light was a person, like that is Jalal. And so you're not here, Jalal. Thanks for your support. You're in Bali having the time of your life. But I expect some free mentorship when you do see this come out. So Max has asked me to talk about hormones today. I work a lot with women between the ages of 20 to 40 years old. I'm quite well known in the holistic fertility space. Reversing infertility seems to be the thing that I'm good at. So let's get into it. Okay, so before we start, this is not medical advice. Please seek the guidance of your general practitioner before making any changes to your healthcare routine. Not medical advice. He's a funny character, that one, isn't he? Do you reckon he'll win? Maybe. All right, so who am I? My name is Kiera Lea. I'm a quantum health clinician and educator. I'm not a doctor, so don't listen to anything that I'm about to say. Only listen to Max. I have a background in nursing and psychology, so registered nursing. I left that over COVID to pursue what I'm doing now, and I've been having the time of my life ever since. I'm literally obsessed with light and health. Like, my friends are going out on the weekend, and I've got like my red light on, my laptop, a Jack Cruz blog, and I'm set for the night, some relaxing music. I'm like, yeah, this is great. This is how I spend my weekends. I'm always learning. Anyone who says that they know everything is lying to you, because the principles of quantum mechanics tells that everything is relative to your thoughts and the way that they're interacting with the light that you can see and that you can't see in your environment. Actually, that's not true, because our perception only influences the light that we can see, and that might be the reason why we don't see infrared and we don't see UV. That's another story for another talk. So I healed myself naturally. When I was in nursing school, I was studying at USC, so on the Sunshine Coast, and then I got a scholarship to attend a university which I shall not name here. You just stop naming it, actually, in the city, in Brisbane. So I went from living very rurally. I grew up on a farm. I was picking beans with my parents on the weekend, just doing all the circadian things, but like that was just my normal life because I was being a normal person and acting like we're supposed to act. So when I moved to Brisbane, I got quite sick. And this isn't a talk that's extremely scientific. I do get quite scientific on my Instagram, on my blog posts, on podcasts that I do. But I was talking to somebody, who was it? Oh yeah, how can I forget? Cindy. I had a fangirl moment on Wednesday. I had lunch with Cindy O'Meara. I know, I was really nervous. More nervous than I am now. And I said to Cindy, I don't know how deep to go in my talk. I don't know what to touch on because there's just so much. When you really start to understand light and health, we can say go in the sun and the key takeaways are always the same. Get cold, eat seasonal, all the things, right? But the science, I love to nerd out on it. And I want to give that to everyone else. Because I think a big problem in our system is that we have offloaded responsibility as individuals to somebody else. And we don't understand what health is anymore. We're so busy every day making money, looking after our kids, going here, going there. We don't have time to learn this stuff. Or we think that we don't have time to, because we've been brought up in a society that doesn't prioritize that or allow us to prioritize that. And so we go to our doctor, our trusted medical professional, and he tells us what's best for our health. and we think this person's gone to university for X amount of years, they know what they're talking about. We implement these things and maybe we get better and maybe we don't. But we've got to a point where we're not getting better. And so everyday individuals, and give yourself a pat on the back because that's you guys doing a fantastic job educating yourself. They've actually said, okay, I'm done with this paradigm. I'm done with being told that saturated fat's bad and that eating insects and veganism is great for your health. My ancestors ate butter and they didn't have all these diseases that we have today. And so they started to think for themselves and they've gone, okay, well, I actually have to learn about health and onboard responsibility to myself again because I'm not getting the answers that I want. And so that's what I did. When I got really sick, when I moved to Brisbane, I was asking my professors, I'm quite academically gifted, not so life smart, but more academics. My mum would have something to say about that. But so I was friends with my professors. So basically the smartest of the smart at my university, I was asking them, I have chronic fatigue, vertigo, what can I do to heal my health? And they said, go vegan. And I did that and I got worse. And I was like, well, if these are the best of the best, that's a bit sad because I'm not getting better. Anyways, let's talk more about that as this goes on. Oh, that's a nice photo of Cameron and I, by the way. We co-founded the Quantum Health Academy together. He's so brilliant. I wasn't here for his speech, but I heard he made a joke about Schrodinger's dog. I heard it was both a good joke and a bad joke at the same time. So today I'm going to teach you that you are not broken, but your environment is. I am sick to death of industries profiting off broken women. I'm so sick of it. It starts when we're young with marketing. Your hair's not the right color. Your skin's not the right color. Here's a product that can fix you. You're broken, you're broken, you're broken. And you're lucky that we have a product that can fix you. So from such a young age, we already have this fundamental thought process that we're thinking that we're not good enough. We have to have an external substance to fix us. And I believe that doesn't just stop at products. We look for external validation through so many modalities. And again, that's another talk for another time. But the notion that I want you to understand, especially if you are female in this day and age, because we are more sensitive to our environment. There's a reason that the people that I work with are predominantly female, because they're the people that are really suffering. And that actually is because we have higher leptin levels than men. We're designed to be more sensitive to our environment so that we can encode this information from our environment through our mitochondria to our children so that they know what type of world they're coming into. And that's a beautiful, beautiful weight to have on your shoulders. And then the man's job, Dr. Max was talking about yin and yang. I see the male and female dynamic the exact same way. So while we're more sensitive to our environment, the man is nurturing and protecting his home so that the female can be healthy, her mitochondria can stay healthy, it's not under stress, and then she can pass on the right information to her offspring. But yeah, so you are not broken, but your environment might be. And perhaps by the end of this, you'll understand why. Okay, so this is a photo of me at nursing school. That's from Snapchat. I don't use Snapchat anymore because I'm not as low dopamine. But it's okay, so this was taken... Yeah, I know. Yeah, well, let's not talk about it. So this photo was taken in the Sunshine Coast. So I'm getting ready to go to nursing school. 3 months later, I look pretty happy, do you think? Look pretty healthy, my skin's pretty good, my teeth are white, my eyes are glistening. Oh, it's beautiful. Anyways, 3 months later, I get diagnosed with PCOS, chronic fatigue, severe hormone imbalance, migraines, anemia. I was someone who never had a painful menstrual cycle in my entire life. I don't know if I want to say this publicly, but I thought that it was something that women made up to have a week off work. I actually didn't understand. I was like, what are they talking about? Oh, I found out what they were talking about. I went from not even understanding painful cycles to being in fetal position crying every single month for a whole week because I was in so much pain. I had chronic vertigo. Max, I might go over. I'm really sorry. I yap a lot. So I had chronic vertigo to the point where I would wake up in the morning, stand up, and I would pass out because my vertigo was so bad. And that was just a few weeks after changing my environment. So I went from 0 diagnoses to 5 and a whole bucket load of symptoms in just a couple of months. And what changed? My diet didn't change. My family dynamic didn't change. I didn't have any major traumatic events. It was my environment that changed. So 3 months after this photo was taken, I moved to Brisbane City to take my scholarship and my employment mentoring first-year students at a university. I went from living on ground floor in a home in rural Australia to living on the 19th story apartment building with a Wi-Fi router next to my head, drinking fluorinated water for the first time, processed foods, and I was surrounded by blue light. I was so blue light toxic that it's just so sad thinking about it. Because I would work at the university too. So I would wake up, I wouldn't see the sunrise, I would make my food, I would drink coffee, I would go to university, I would work, I would go to class, I would go to placement, I would go back to university and work until 7:30 at night, then go home. I was literally never outside and I was swimming in blue light. So basically, my environment changed. My environment previous to this was giving me very healthy, natural input signals. Our body is constantly sensing our environment so that it can make the right decisions internally for us. And this includes what hormones to make, when to make them, when to make us go to sleep, when to make us wake up. And I went from having these beautiful natural input signals, natural sunlight, natural water, natural air, natural magnetism, to now having all of these dirty input signals from Wi-Fi routers, from artificial blue light, never seeing the sun. My body went from being in an environment that was supportive of its function, which led to me being an extremely, extremely healthy young woman, to being in an environment that was basically designed to set me up to fail. And I'll show you a great photo, which I wasn't going to show, but I will, to get my point across of what that looks like. So I used to wear AirPods and train in a gym when I went to Brisbane because I didn't have any parks to train in. I used to train in a park, I used to climb trees, and then I was wearing AirPods and training in a gym and using Snapchat a whole lot more. But doing that gave me this. So my first symptom was I had chronic acne. I had never had acne in my entire life. Can also notice that I'm quite pale in that photo, and we're going to talk about that soon. So I used to live in my state's largest city. Thought I was really cool. I had the sunrise coming up then that I didn't watch. Had all these beautiful artificial lights to look at every single night. I lived in like this nice apartment. I thought it was great. But living there gave me this. So then I was diagnosed with PCOS. So that's me in the Royal Brisbane Hospital. I don't know, maybe getting some IV fluids and things because probably my environment was making me chronically dehydrated, which I now know, but I didn't know then. Okay, so as a registered nursing student, I thought I knew everything about health. No one could tell me anything about health because I was the first person in my family to go to university. I knew everything. When anyone was sick, they would ring me, and I had this ego where I thought I knew everything, right? Boy, did that change. Until having a mindset like that left me looking like this. So that's 3 months after this photo. Now, some people, it doesn't take them this long to get sick. Some people, it's a little bit longer. Some people, they get sick a little bit quicker. Why did I get so sick? I think it's because, thankfully, I hated it then. Now I'm so thankful to my mum. I grew up on a property. I always had no clothes on. Like, if you look at baby photos of me, you can't show them to my mum because I'm always naked. I'm like always barefoot, swimming in creeks. Our neighbours grew cattle, so we ate local meat. We grew our own produce. So my body was used to having really appropriate input signals to design its function. So my body was stuck together like glue through good signals. Now my family lineage had no time to adapt, and I don't actually believe that we ever do adapt to artificial input signals. And so I feel like that's why I felt the results of EMFs, of artificial blue light, just so heavily. And so I was never going to share that photo, but I feel like it's important. All right, so conflicts of interest. Nice photo of Cameron, Dr. Khan, and myself. We co-founded the Quantum Health Academy together because I got sick of being on client calls from 4 a.m. until 10 o'clock every single day, helping women achieve better health. And I said, I just can't do this because it's taking my health. But I'm so passionate about it. How can I continue my work but offload some responsibility to other people? And Dr. Khan said to me, Kiera, I think it's time that we train other practitioners. And so that's what we're doing. And there'll be hundreds of thousands of us. Hopefully, we aim to reach 1 million people in the next 5 years and change a larger amount of lives than we can on our own. So I also run something called Solar Culture Retreats, and we also have a school group where I educate people, because I believe that the future of healthcare really comes back to education. So putting the power and onboarding responsibility back into individuals' hands is really important. So Solar Culture runs its first retreat in El Salvador. We have leaders from across the globe, Alexis Cowan, Dr. Pran's going to be there as well, Jalal, and we'll all be educating for 5 days in that place. We chose El Salvador because it has high magnetism, good water, lots of sun, and it'll be winter, I think, in America, so everyone will want to escape and go back to the sun. And then I also own Kiera Lea Wellness, which is a coaching program. So yeah, they're my conflicts of interest. So back to the original topic. You are not broken, but your environment is. So as I said before, I feel like from such a young age, especially me, I'm 26, I feel like I really was that first generation that got access to social media. So I went from being exposed to my family, the people I went to at school, to hundreds of thousands of people every day, every second. Social media is full of marketing. And what do people market you? Products, so that you buy them and then they can profit off you. And turns out sick, broken people are really easy to profit off. And so the marketing that I was exposed to was marketing that tried to tell me that I was sick and broken, and they had the solution, whether it be a hair dye, a product, a hormone supplement, and that I needed to buy it. But this makes me angry, because health doesn't come from a supplement. It doesn't come from an external substance that we take. Our body is designed to function optimally when it's in an environment that is supportive of that function. We aren't born out of our mother's womb with a little carry bag of like omega-6s, asthma inhaler, I don't know what else, gummy collagen drops. Like, that's not how it works. God said, I've prepared you perfectly for this environment that I've also created you for. And when we get a mismatch there, that's when things start to break down. This isn't really a scientific talk. I was talking to Cindy and she said, Kiera, it doesn't have to be scientific. You just need to tell people what they need to know. It's not about you. Think of the things that you wish you were told 3 years ago and tell them that. And so that's what I'm doing. So our society tells us, especially as women, you're not good enough, but here's a product that can fix you. So let's go through some of these. One, we have Bondi Sands up here in the left-hand corner. So that's a fake tan. Cindy, you would have a heart attack if you looked at the ingredients on that. We put this on our skin to make us tan, but what they really should tell us is that, yes, being tan is attractive because it's a sign of good health, but you can just go outside and make that tan yourself if you take your sunglasses off and your POMCs and your photoreceptors are working well. And it's safe and it's effective, and you're not lathering yourself in all of these chemicals that are going to give you a whole bunch of side effects that are going to lead to a whole bunch of supplements and a whole bunch of diagnoses. We have collagen peptides. Now, collagen's a funny one. I got in trouble on Twitter recently for a very controversial post I made with Carnivore Aurelius, if anyone knows who that is. So we think that collagen in a powder form is the same as collagen from an animal product, a natural animal product, like a bone broth or something that a lamb roast. It's not. So I'm not going to go into it today. I think there's a previous Regenerate video that talks about deuterium. Deuterium is something that we need in certain amounts of ratios. Nature doesn't make mistakes. So we eat something that's local and seasonal. The deuterium ratio in that product is perfectly quantized to suit our environment and also us and the animals that it resides in. Now, collagen supplements, they are so heavy in deuterium. And basically you just need to know that the ratio is completely off and it's very detrimental to our health. So the whole point of me putting this in here is just to say that supplements, they're not natural. They're concentrated. Sometimes they're from 10 different animals from across the globe and they're all mixed up together, and that information that our body senses is completely backwards. Down in the bottom left-hand corner, we have some hair dye. This same company will also tell you that going blonde is, it's attractive, it's good. And then it'll also sell you hair repair products in the next 6 months because your hair is going to be extremely damaged. But you're beautiful just the way you are. You don't need to dye your hair. You need it to grow long and luscious and healthy. And having good hair is a sign of good internals. it's a sign that you're living in coherence. So it's not something that we want to change. We want to sense that as a signal and say, okay, like my nails are brittle, my hair's falling out, what's wrong with my environment? What do I need to fix? We shouldn't dampen symptoms. We should look at fundamentally what's going on, what is the root cause. We have some really pretty girls here with some sort of greens powders. I don't understand athletic greens. I think Huberman was promoting them. Again, not the same as natural organic. These are also loaded with pesticides, GMO products. Again, they're greens from all across the globe that are mixed up together and put into a packet. They all carry different information. It's quite confusing for us. Here we have breast implants. I swear in 5 years, 10 years, we're going to look back and be like, what is these BBLs, these breast implants? It's literally just telling women you're not good enough. The way that God designed you isn't good enough, and here's a product that can fix you. Now these, it's actually getting into the media, are so detrimental to your health. The amount of toxins that are in those, the leakage that happens, and then the issues that women experience with breastfeeding later in life after having these surgeries is just so catastrophic. And unfortunately, it's not something that can be undone easily. The result of these surgeries and the negative implications they have on us are lifelong. So they are quite serious decisions. We have some weight loss products. They won't tell you that leptin resistance, I think Max talked about it before, is why everyone is struggling to lose weight and maintain homeostasis. And they won't tell you that artificial blue light at night raises your blood glucose levels, raises your insulin, so that leptin doesn't dock and you become leptin resistant. They won't tell you that, but they will sell you these products that will fix you, that are focused on diet, that will cause more symptoms and mental health issues when they don't work because you feel like, again, that you're doing something wrong. So I call this probably like 9 years old to 20 years old marketing, right? Moving on to this next slide. So we're already primed. Us young women, we already think we're broken. We already think we're not good enough. And then we start having hormonal issues. Your hormones, okay, who's ever been told their hormones are imbalanced? Did anyone explain to you what a hormone is? Can anyone tell me what a hormone is? Cameron, not you. Okay, well, yeah, yeah. So hormones they're messengers. They're chemical messengers. They are quantized to our environment. And we'll talk more about that. But what they will do is they won't tell you what the root cause approach is, but they'll happily sell you a supplement because you're broken and you need to be fixed. And your body can't do what it needs to do, so you need them to fix you. Pregnenolone, a massive supplement I see clients on. They don't know that if you have healthy mitochondria and you watch Morning Sunrise, that your body will actually make pregnenolone for you. You actually don't need to sign up for a lifelong prescription. And they won't tell you that pregnenolone, artificial pregnenolone, actually influences the growth and development of your baby in utero in a negative manner. But they'll tell you to take it and they'll tell you that it'll fix you. Estrogen for women. It's an artificial blue light story. We can talk about chemical signaling and the rate at which signals fire and the way that impacts testosterone and estrogen and the leveling of that in our body. Hormonal birth control, I don't think I need to talk about that. So let's look at some statistics. So the hormone replacement therapy market. So in 2023, it's worth $22.5 billion. In 2033, it's going to be worth double that. So they're making money off broken people. These are industries, these are companies that are both marketing to people to tell them they're broken. They're not solving the root cause, and instead they're providing a solution through a product, which will ultimately lead to more symptoms, which will lead to more products and more profit for them. Let's look at the key players in this. Bayer, I don't even know why they're in this market. Pfizer, Novo, no surprise. So the key takeaways, they're making a lot of money off you guys. I love memes as well, Jake Welke. So we have here in the middle supplement companies, women's best interests, but they're too busy looking at profitable industry. So let's have a look at a snapshot in time, 2024 women's health. So the things that I see come through in my clinic, and these aren't things that were around 150 years ago. Our hospitals were filled with acute injury, whether that someone came off their tractor or someone had some sort of cardiac event, which has increased exponentially in the last 10 years as it is. It was all acute mainly. Now it's not. Now our hospitals are filled with chronic illness and the doctors can't fix them, but they pull out their prescription pads and they prescribe you something, a pharmaceutical or a supplement. Functional medicine will provide you with a supplement, and allopathic medicine will provide you with a prescription. But this doesn't address the root cause. They're not asking the question, why all of a sudden are all these women so sick? What is happening? Is it their environment? Is it the water they're drinking? Is it their stress levels? Because let's face it, cortisol, it tanks fertility, and we're going to talk more about that. If you look at the average woman's life, she's running a business, she's caring for children at home, she's looking after her husband, she's looking after the animals, she's taking care of her family. Like, that in itself is so much work. And that cortisol is not normal. We're actually meant to work in community. We're meant to have shared ventures and shared priorities amongst us. We're not meant to live this fast-paced lifestyle that we do today. Our cortisol isn't meant to be this high. Now, a lot of these women's health concerns, PCOS, endometriosis, well, it sounds like my diagnosis, really. Infertility, chronic fatigue, adrenal fatigue, these weren't around, and these can all be tied back to our circadian, root cause approach. And if we look at when artificial light, and I know I'm preaching to the choir here, was first introduced, I think it was 1949. Paris first lit up their town at night with streetlights. And this is really when we started to see all of these issues come in. Then we invented the Wi-Fi router, and now we all have phones that emit 5G, and now these are just, every second person has them. And they have multiple, it's not just one. Let's look at men's health, because yes, men, you have hormones too. So low testosterone, high estrogen is massive. Diet plays a massive role in that as well. Supplements, stress levels, artificial light, sunlight, or absence of sunlight, and then also fatigue. So this is what I'm dealing with in my clinic. This is what I see a lot of. And I have very, very high success rates in reversing these when people come off their supplements, when they bring their stress levels down, when they pay attention to the water they're drinking, to the thoughts they feed themselves, to the ground they're standing on. It's really not that hard. I kind of feel bad coaching people because I'm like, I'm just telling you to live like a normal person. But apparently we forgot along the way, so people need some reminding. Okay, so that's the introduction. We'll get into a little bit more of the science. I think Cameron and Max touched on this quite a bit, but I really like the way that I explain it, not bias. But maybe this will stick in someone's head that didn't really understand it before. So we are tied to light. You think of the light outside, us, we're best friends. We should never be disconnected. If you think of a puzzle, you can think of the light as one piece of the puzzle and us as the other. Now, when we have natural lighting and then you have us, they fit together perfectly. Those two pieces fit together really well. When we have artificial lighting, not so much. So on the bottom left-hand corner, you can see here that light is changing. So I want to introduce to you this concept of time and how we actually tell time. So just because my consciousness, my conscious brain, because I'm a smart person, knows that this conference started at 9 a.m., my body doesn't know that. My body doesn't register that time. My body tells time through the light in its environment, specifically the blue light in its environment. So our body uses that blue light frequency. It's not infrared, it's not all these other ones, violet. It's the blue light frequency we actually use to keep time. And this is changing all through the day. So your phone screens, how blue they are, that's actually set to mimic midday sun. Now, something that's really interesting is blue light also influences a hormone called cortisol. Now, cortisol's not bad. Everyone thinks it's bad. We need cortisol to be low, low, low. But actually, if cortisol's really, really low, we start to get some other issues that aren't great. Cortisol is fine. Every single hormone inside of you is fine when it's balanced with its partner, when it's working in line with your environment. So when you get up in the morning and you go outside, your brain, your suprachiasmatic nucleus, your hypothalamus, looks and it interacts, and the photoreceptors on your skin and in your eyes interacts with natural light. And it says, okay, I know that it's 7 a.m. You might know that it's 7 a.m. Because you've looked at your phone. But if you're looking at a bright phone screen in the morning, your body doesn't sense 7 a.m. Your body senses midday. And what's that going to do? It's going to drive your cortisol up. So you're already starting your day stressed, in a stressed out state. However, when you go outside and you see natural lighting, your body says, okay, good morning, Kiera. What a beautiful day. It's time to rev up your thyroid. Oh, it's a bit cold today, so I think your metabolic rate should be XYZ. I think that your body temperature should be like this. This is the time of the cycle that it's in. This is where you are on the planet today. And it can sense that information. So straight away, waking up, giving yourself that right input signal, putting in that information is really, really important. And that changes all through the day. And we'll talk about some key takeaways later on. But I also want to note that a lot of people in the circadian space, they're scared of darkness now. They're scared of winter. So I had some friends recently go and visit the equator to get out of the Australian winter. But that's not actually appropriate. We need both sides of the coin. Just like, unfortunately, men and women do need each other, and we do all need to get along. To light a candle is to cast a shadow, and you can't have one without the other. So if you want to have light, you also need to have darkness. This concept of yin and yang is really, really important. I won't talk about it too much because Max beat me to it, but it can get quite philosophical. It's quite nice. So we went through this. How does our body tell time? So this is a slide from a Dr. Jack Cruz webinar I watched. So blue light varies daily and seasonally. The light that we're around, the artificial light, it doesn't change. It's the same day in, day out, year in, year out. And that's a big fault, and it impacts our hormone production. Here's another slide. So we actually only see 1% of the electromagnetic spectrum that we're around, and I think Tristan will talk about this more in his presentation. We don't see near infrared, we don't see UV. That's all we need on that slide. Okay, so who knows about circadian rhythms? Do I need to talk about them, or are you pretty well aware what they are? Okay, a few of you, maybe I'll go on. So when it comes to circadian rhythms, it's a clock that's basically programmed in our body. So if you think back to times when people lived on farms and we didn't have electricity, we used the light outside to tell time. Right, there was actually a really nice philosopher, and he actually built a flower garden. So I think it was in 1920. He wanted to make a clock out of flowers. So he realized when he walked outside, depending on what season it was and what time of day it was, some flowers would be open and some flowers would be closed. And so he planted these in the right order in a round circle. And so when he would go outside, he would know what time of day it was depending on what the flowers were doing. And that's actually how our body responds hormonally to the changes in our light environment. So here's an example of circadian rhythms. I don't actually agree with everything on here, but it was a nice picture that I found. The key takeaway is that different things happen at different times. It also correlates quite heavily to the traditional Chinese medicine. So they say like your liver goes through recycling at 3 a.m. and then your qi comes back at 4 a.m. and all these types of things. So basically in the morning, we get a nice surge of cortisol. It wakes us up. At nighttime, the light goes away. We get this release of melatonin that we actually made in that morning if we had access to sunlight. And that sets our circadian rhythm. It sets and kind of governs all the jobs that our body does throughout the day, because our body knows what jobs to do depending on the light that's in our environment. So the uncoupling of the system, we kind of went through this. So in 1887, Edison invented the light bulb. In 1891, Tesla invented the power grid. So these are really the first times we changed our electromagnetic spectrum from the Schumann's resonance through natural electromagnetic frequencies to these alien electromagnetic frequencies. So if you believe in God, you'll believe that this environment, our natural environment that's outside right now, was perfectly designed to suit our function. Now, if you believe in evolution, then you believe that as we adapted to our environment, they're in no way separate from each other. As our grass changed, as our trees grew, as we moved from Africa to Norway, our body changed with our environment. And so we were designed to function with the Schumann's resonance, with these natural electromagnetic frequencies. Now, when Edison and Tesla, they did what they did, they changed these input signals. And our electromagnetic environment really is the glue that holds our physiology together. So when we change that, things change fundamentally inside of us. The shape of our mitochondria changes. The shape of our respiratory proteins changes. The way our metabolism functions is determinant on the electromagnetic spectrum that we're around. Functional medicine doctors don't know that. So let's quickly recap centralized endocrinology. So this is the traditional symptom. If you would go to the doctors and you're like, okay, I'm not feeling too well, I'm really tired all the time, this is what happens. So you have your symptom, patient develops the symptoms in line with hormone disorders. You go to your doctor, maybe your doctor will put you on oral contraceptive just to shut down your hormones completely, or if you're lucky, he might do some testing. So the patient seeks some medical advice of their GP, who refers them to an endocrinologist. They go to the endocrinologist, they do some more testing, they don't address the root cause, and they simply prescribe a hormone replacement therapy. Not always, but commonly, and through the people that I see in my clinic, they come to me on these types of medications. So the medication has side effects, and the root cause of the original issue still remains. So they've never actually said, okay, so why is Kiera feeling this way? Is it the water she's drinking? Does she have no DC electric current in her body? Is she around bloated? Like, what is wrong with her? Why can't her body do its job? It simply said, your body's broken. Here's a product that can fix you. But that issue's still there. That initial attack on your body is still there, but now you can't feel it. So it's like taking a medication. It's like an alcoholic who has trauma and they just continually drink, but it's still there. The trauma's still there. And it doesn't go away. In 12 months' time, you just get a new symptom and you get a new medication. And then you get another symptom 6 months later and a new medication, and you see where it's going. It's an endless cycle, and that's the loop that the centralized practitioners and the centralized patients are stuck in until they learn better. And it's not going to come from endocrinology. It's going to come from a ground-up movement. So hormones are quantized. So this is a peek into my work and how I work. So we look at how centralized endocrinology works. This is the things that I focus on. So when someone comes to me and we do some blood work, or by the time they get to me, they usually have $10,000 worth of blood work that I can go through and utilize, which is just ridiculous. So I look at the electromagnetic environment. So the light you can see and the light you cannot see and the light we make internally all impact our quantum machinery and our ability to interact and sense our environment. Now, you and I, we could both go outside right now and we could sense very different environments depending on the damage that's been done to our photoreceptors. That's why you see things like red lights coming out or chroma lights, the opsin regenerator light, because sometimes your quantum machinery is that broken through a poor environment that even if you do go in a good environment, you actually can't sense that. Your typewriter's broken, your printer's broken, it doesn't work like that. So I look at, is their quantum machinery intact? Or do we need to do a little bit of work to fix that? Can this person sense their environment? I look at information. So our body requires the correct information to make the correct decisions about how to run its internal timing mechanisms. So how does our body sense our environment? It senses the electromagnetic spectrum. So I look at, does this person have good input signals? And that is the circadian health. That is the grounding. It's all of these things that come into that. I want to make sure the signals that they're feeling through their eyes and their receptors on their skin, that their mitochondria are sensing, are all natural. I don't want any artificial signals in there. Trauma. Now, trauma is a massive one. It's one that's really missed in the circadian space. Trauma impacts the way in which our body forges coherence with our environment. So we actually store memory, not in our brain, but it's quite controversial, in the hydrogen bonds of our water network. Now that can impact your fascia. It can cause emotional blockages, and it completely can change the way that you sense reality. It can even actually change the density of the photoreceptors in your eye. So it needs to be addressed. And until you release that trauma, it's still going to be there. It's still going to be there as the root cause. And I would argue that almost every single client that I work with has been through some sort of trauma that they haven't dealt with that has then manifested into a physical symptom. And you need to work with them simultaneously. I think that the higher your redox is, the better you are at dealing with trauma and dealing with stresses. Let's think if we went through a very traumatic event, like let's say my mother passed away, God forbid, and I was not feeling well before this. So I had headaches, I had vertigo, I wasn't feeling very well. Do you think my body would say, Kiera can't even function every day as it is? Do you think it's a good time for her to deal with this trauma, this death that's happened in her family? Or am I just going to repress it somewhere until she feels better and she's in a safer environment to deal with that trauma? That's exactly what happens. So in the trauma space, we talk a lot about dealing with trauma, deal with your trauma, fix your trauma. But actually, if you're forcing that trauma out there when your body's not ready, that can be extremely detrimental to them. When you get your redox up, when you give your your body a safe environment that's supportive of its function, your body will decide when it's ready to deal with that trauma, and it will happen naturally. Nutrition, Cindy covered this beautifully. It's not just about the food that we eat in terms of micronutrients, it's also about when we eat and the context of the environment. Just like Cindy said, if you live in Australia, there's no reason you can't eat carbohydrates. But if you're living in Wyoming in the winter, you probably don't want to be eating bananas from Queensland because food is stored light. The way that the electrons spin, the information, the biophotons that are encapsulated in those electrons give information to your body. And so if I'm eating bananas from Queensland when I'm in Wyoming in winter, that's a complete mismatch. Also, cytochrome 1 in our mitochondria, where carbs go into, is a UV light receptor. So UV light turns that on and allows you to process carbohydrates properly and efficiently. If you're in winter and you're eating carbs, your mitochondria turn that off. It's like, oh, it's cold, there's no UV, no carbs will be growing, I don't need them. That's the way that it works. So also look at the internal environment. So this is massive. This is the work of Dr. Jalal Khan. He talks a lot about posture, fascia, physical trauma, pre-existing nutritional deficiencies. I know Cindy's work deals with that. And also your hormone status and the homeostasis of your body. So posture is massive. What's happening with your fascia, because as we said, fascia is a superconductive highway that literally pushes information at the speed of light throughout your body. Biochemistry isn't the way your body talks to each other. It's all through proton flow. Okay, so this is a new framework, very different to what we saw back here. I should probably, what's it called when you like, I need to patent it. So don't look at that. So trauma, first thing I address. I don't address it straight away, but I might put that in my back pocket and be like, okay, once this person's healthy enough, I do know that I need to go there. Whether it's with me, because I kind of work as a primary care physician, I kind of oversee someone's care. I might refer them to someone else if I think they need trauma work or some sort of additional therapy. I'm a big fan of functional patterns. I'm a big fan of myofascial release because that's really working with that water. That's that stored memory, perhaps. So then we go into the information, we address the electromagnetic environment, we look at nutrition, we look at the internal environment. Now that's the framework that I've built. People get better on that framework without supplements, without pharmaceuticals, without all the side effects, and it works. All right, so practical applications. I was looking through my notes, and I thought, what's the most common thing that I'm seeing at the moment in my practice? And it's something called PSS. So it's Pregnenolone Still Syndrome. So Pregnenolone is our master sex hormone that is divided up to become all of our other sex and steroid hormones. So that's synonymous. So for Pregnenolone to be made, you need cholesterol, and you need cholesterol from animal products. So if you're not eating animal products, chances are you're going to have issues with Pregnenolone. Now, depending on what's happening in your environment that your body senses, Pregnenolone gets divvied up to become everything else that you need in your body, all the sex and steroid hormones. That's how things are meant to function. But today, we're seeing a lot of this, which is Pregnenolone Still Syndrome. I love memes. So we see here cortisol on the right. We have Pregnenolone here. So Pregnenolone is being made. Now, it can become every other sex and steroid hormone, or it can become more cortisol, depending on your stress levels and what your body's experiencing at that time. If your cortisol is really, really high, because remember we said that our body's always acting in our best interests, your body says, oh, now's not actually a really good time for Kiera to make a baby. She's actually really stressed. So I'm actually going to turn this Pregnenolone into more cortisol because I want to keep her safe. I want her to be ready to deal with whatever she has to deal with in the day to keep her safe. And it won't make our fertility hormones because it said, let's just downregulate fertility right now. Let's just put that on hold because if we have a baby right now, chances of survival in this environment is not looking too good. So that's called Pregnenolone Still Syndrome. So let's look at things that raise cortisol. So artificial blue light will raise your cortisol. So looking at your phone screen first in the morning before going outside, it'll cause this Pregnenolone Still Syndrome. It's actually really common, and I see it a lot. So yes, our body is always acting in our best interest. Now, it's not just artificial blue light. I know in the quantum space we talk about light, and the functional people like you need to talk about nutrition because it's important. And I've tried to incorporate more of that into here. But what else causes high cortisol? Because yes, it's not just artificial light. We talked about one of them. That's busy schedules, it's constant stress, it's high workloads that we're not designed to have. It's emotional stress. So are you fighting with your partner? Are your relationships not very good? Your body will actually raise your cortisol as a defense mechanism. Trauma, stuck in flight or fight, that'll raise your cortisol. Physical stress. So there's actually a negative feedback loop through the muscles in the tops of our thighs. Now, something that I see in office workers a lot, if any of you work in an office, when they're on their computer all day and they're typing away, they might get an email from a boss and getting up them for something, or maybe their girlfriend texts them a message and she's angry, he doesn't want to go home now, and all these things. What happens is your body goes into fight or fight and you tense those muscles and you get ready to run. But only you're not actually in physical threat, it's just an email, but your body doesn't know that. So over time, those muscles, they become engaged, and that sends a negative feedback loop for your body to stay in fight or fight. So until you actually deal with that through myofascial release, that negative feedback system remains the same. It's not spoken about much, but it's actually something that can move the needle quite a bit. And that's just one example of physical stress. Fascia, your environment, so artificial light light that we can't see, so non-native EMFs, will do the same thing as artificial blue light in terms of raising our cortisol. So all of these things will raise our cortisol, and our body goes, well, not a good time to have a baby. And now we live in a world where everyone's infertility rates are, infertility is running rampant. I see it all the time. And it can take some time to repair. The good thing is it's quiet. It doesn't take long. I'm going to share a case study with you soon. All right, so let's look at a case study. I'm actually really proud of this one. So I'm not going to give a name, but she's happy for me to share her photos. So this was my client goal, was fertility. She wanted to have a baby. She's 37 years old. She's been trying since she was 21 years old. Diagnosed with unexplained, and this isn't the only one, there's so many of these, unexplained infertility and unable to conceive naturally. She had done everything, acupuncture, trauma work, every modality under the sun, no pun intended. Well, she didn't do them under the sun, let's just say that, to no avail. She was so upset, and I met with her, and I started working with her, and just a few months later, she is having her little one, so I think she's 25 weeks there. She actually just gave birth 3 weeks ago to a beautiful, happy, healthy little boy, which is very exciting. Now, her issue, I sat her down and I used that framework. I looked at her environment. Her issue was literally that she was just looking at her phone and she was doing office work instead of going outside in the morning. And she did that for a month and she fell pregnant. This is how these simple changes can lead to such dramatic effects. And they're not expensive. Your body's not broken. It's just trying to function in an environment that is not supportive, and it's perhaps made to be not supportive of your optimal function. So this is a nice feedback that I got from this lady. She said, I don't mind that it took me this long to fall pregnant because my pregnancy has set an example for the rest of my family and friends. I have had no morning sickness, no swelling, no edema, no weird food cravings, and I've had abundant energy. This is what pregnancy is, meant to be like when you're healthy. And that really touched my heart because that's how pregnancy is meant to be. We think that our body is always working against us. Our menstrual cycles are meant to be painful. We're meant to have chronic fatigue. Fertility is not something that comes easily to us. That's what God designed us to do. That's our primary function. Morning sickness, it's not normal. That's tied to circadian disruption. That's tied to your mitochondria and your baby's mitochondria doing different things. When you align the coherence, everything falls together nicely. So if women knew, Kiera, if it really is this simple, why doesn't everyone know about it? Well, if women knew that their physiology was determined by light, what would the world look like? I cried the other day when I went and visited a family member in hospital. It was 11 o'clock at night. Don't ask why. I had a good reason to be awake, okay? And I saw a pregnant nurse in her 3rd trimester working at 11 o'clock at night, surrounded by blue light. Do you think that women are going to want to go to work like that? Do you think that people are going to want to work in offices under blue light, doing jobs they already hate? Do you think that people are going to want to work shift work? Our whole society needs to change to live in line with circadian principles. And unfortunately, everyone, all these industries, have big money built on top of sick people, built on top of sick women. Like, we looked at how much HRT is worth. It's billions and billions of dollars. They're going to fight to keep that because that's their wealth. So is it women or is it their environment? Thanks.